I'm starting the recording. Okay, that's fine. Then I need to do this. Okay, recording is started. So let's go. So I'm just connecting to the uh, server. We have errors at the SCCM installation. So we are going to start from there today. Okay, so we are going to install the SCCM configuration primary site server today. So basically I did a mistake yesterday that I thought I was installing SQL Server Enterprise, but I installed SQL Server Express. Okay, so I have to uninstall SQL Server Express and install the SQL Server Enterprise edition. uh, the installation is pretty much same. Okay, the options, everything is same, just the version of the particular software, I mean the version of the SQL is different, but the installation steps and procedures and all other prerequisites are same. So I haven't changed anything. I just uninstalled SQL Express and I installed SQL Enterprise Edition. Okay, so I'm going to the SSCM path. We already, so just to do a quick recap, we already extended the Active Directory schema for SCCM. We have installed the prerequisites from Server Manager, that is bits role, .NET Framework, Web Server IAS, and all those prerequisites. And then we have installed the ADK setup for Windows ADK 8.1. We have installed tools like user state migration tool, Windows PE tool, and one more tool, that the deployment tools. And then we install SQL Server Express Edition. That's it. So we haven't done anything else. So I'm going to run the setup as an administrator for the config manager. Okay, I just go through the steps very quickly because this is the third time we are doing, so I think you should be all familiar with this process now. So this is a primary site, yes, and I'm trying an evaluation version and I accept the terms. Okay, I accept. Next. Now I've already downloaded the files previously, right? We haven't done the installation, but the files are downloaded during the prerequisite. So I'm just going to point to that particular folder where the files are there. So it will just cross verify whether all the required files are there in that path or not. So it is verifying 15 cab files. Okay. Okay, select English, English. Okay, this is your site code to uniquely recognize. So for example, this is our Chennai site, so I make it as CHE. So Chennai underscore primary. This is the primary site in Chennai. So I want the installation to be done in the F drive because in C drive we don't have enough space. So I'll go with F drive. Next. Okay, this is a standalone site. Next. Okay, you know this prompt. We can make it a central administration site whenever we need. Okay. So it is creating a SQL instance for the database CM underscore CHE. Okay, so now this is the SQL Server log files where they get stored. So that's fine. And this is my fully qualified domain name of my SCCM server. That is also fine. So I just need HTTP communication. I'm not using HTTP because we don't have any certificates here. So I need to build a PKI server, that is public key infrastructure, Active Directory certificate services. I need to install that role and then I need to configure some kind of a root domain controller, and then I need to issue certificates to the clients and all the stuff. So we are not going to do that here. We just be depending on the HTTP communication, which doesn't require any certificates. uh, and this is my domain management point, and this is my distribution point. So both are on the same server. The client connection is HTTP. I'm not using HTTPS here because we don't have certificates, as I said. So management point role is going to be installed, and distribution point role is going to be installed on the same server. Basically, if you have one server, it is like a role that you need to surely install on this point in this particular server. If you have a multiple server, like you don't want to make this as a central administration, I mean, like you want to make this as a primary site server but not a distribution point. You want to configure the distribution point on a different server for redundancy or for load, I mean, like you want to make sure that you have some performance avoid some kind of performance problems. You don't want to install distribution point, you can uncheck that. This is just an option for you. We just have only one server here, so I'm installing all roles, all the required default roles on this server only. So I don't want to join the customer program and then hit next, so it's gonna do some kind of prerequisites, I mean, like checking. Once it is done, we should be good. So warnings are fine, we should not have any errors. So I'm hoping everything will go good because I haven't had any issues before. So yeah, so that is fine. Now if I say begin install, so this is gonna, you cannot use the root of a drive as the sole directory path. Okay, that's fine. Okay, um, understand what's the problem. So can I can't go back. Oh my god. So did you understand what it said? Like the problem is it is telling that new folder. I cannot use the root of the drive. Why? I don't know. But it is telling that I need to do it in a particular folder rather. So I will go to F installations, SMS setup, bin x64 setup. That's fine. We get errors, but that's fine. That's how we actually learn, like what need to be doing or what not to be done. So evaluation products, that's fine. Accept, agree, next. Accept, next. Use previously downloaded folders. This PC, F drive, SCCM. Okay, next. Oh, sorry. This is not. Uh, this is installation files. Okay, next. Okay, English. Next. Site code is Chennai. CHENNAI underscore primary. Install the management console. Installation folder is F drive SCCM. Okay, next. So standalone. Yes, next. Okay, next. Only HTTP. Next. Don't want to join. So it's gonna take a while for the installation to complete. Am I sharing the screen? Yes. Okay. Okay. Begin install. Okay. So the setup has started the installation. Okay. So it's gonna take like couple of minutes, like probably 10 to 15 minutes. for this to be completed. So yeah. So in the meanwhile, any questions that you guys have from last 2 classes or 3 classes? Anything that you would like to discuss?
Now, as a prerequisite, do you want to open any particular port to establish this? Yeah.
See, if you look at the SQL database, the ports are already actually, I mean, on the server, right?
Yes.
Okay, so basically what happens is we have SQL and SCCM installing on one server. Okay, so the ports are locally connected, so we don't need to open any ports in this particular scenario because the ports are already open because on the local host every port can communicate with every port only within that particular server. But if the server want to connect to a different server, okay, if the SQL is installed on a secondary server like a different server, and if you are now integrating SQL and SSCM together, right? You need to make sure that 4023 port, that is SQL port, is able to communicate with the SSCM server, and SSCM is also able to communicate with SQL on that particular port. So that requirement need to be taken care. If you are installing SQL and SSCM on the same server as we are doing right now, there is no need to open any particular port because they are installed on the same server. The communication can happen without any problem. Clear or any question?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay. So anything else? Any other questions?
No, Malik. If we are, I mean, hands-on practice, we'll get a lot of questions. We haven't
Yeah,
started. I will see.
yeah. Sure. I know that because I want to touch each and every option that we have, so that
Yes.
while you do hands on you don't got a question like, okay, what is this option for, why it was not covered. So those things I need to avoid first so that you can start your hands on. Okay, so because we have a limited day of trial period, right, 30 days, so I just want to cover all the essential things first, and then you can start actually doing hands on. You will
Yeah,
have
that's
a
what.
record, you will have recording for reference if you would like to, so that you can ensure that you have more visibility while working on the your own setup.
Okay.
So this is gonna work. So let me just quickly go ahead and do something else in the. So basically we have three machines: Active Directory, client, and SCCM. So client is already joined to the domain last Sunday, right? While we are working. So what I will do is I will go to Active Directory quickly and create some sites, and I will create some subnets, and then I will also create some users and computers and groups. Okay, so that we can quickly jump into the for the discovery methods, boundaries, and then device collection and user collection and user device affinity and all the stuff once the installation is done. So I'm going to log in as the same guy, lab account as lab.com, and I'll give you him the password. So typically we just have one particular site. No, we don't have any sites, but we can actually manually create sites that that really don't need to exist in Active Directory sites and services. Okay, so you can manually create some subnets and sites just for demonstration purposes. So basically, if I go to sites, Active Directory sites and services. Come on, open up. Okay, so if I look at the sites here, there is only one site that is default site, and we'll only have one server, which is our Active Directory server. So I can rename this site to something as Chennai, because we named our this thing as Chennai. Okay, the default site can be renamed. So in Chennai, now we have one Active Directory server and one SSCM server and one client machine, which is Windows 10. Right? Correct? Any questions on that?
No, Malik.
No.
Clear, right? Okay,
Clear.
now if I go to the Chennai in the Azure portal, if I go to the Chennai subnet. So let me just check what is my Chennai subnet. The Chennai subnet is somewhere is 10.0.0.0/24. So now I need to go to the subnets and there is no subnet here. Okay. The subnet is not associated. So what I need to do, I need to create that subnet. So I say new subnet and then I will give the subnet prefix, which is 10.0.0.0/24, right? Now that subnet is for Chennai. So I select Chennai and I hit OK. Okay. Now Chennai site is, I mean, like Chennai site, Active Directory knows that Chennai subnet is 10.0.0.24. So whenever a client machine logs into the domains, logs into the network using any of the IP addresses within this range. So 10.0.0.0.24 will have somewhere around 254 IP addresses, which is 10.0.0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 254. So if any computer, client computer, logs on to the network within that range, within that IP range, Active Directory immediately knows that okay, it belongs to Chennai site. Okay, so so that doesn't make any kind, I mean, like any kind of sense for us, but it kind of in the background does a lot of work based on the site topologies and all the stuff. So now we have created that IP subnet range to and linked it to Chennai site. Very good. For example, if you have another site, okay, new site, this site does not exist in our particular infrastructure in the lab environment, but let us assume that we have some site like Hyderabad. Okay, this site is Hyderabad. We select the default IP link. That's fine. Site Hyderabad has been created, but it does not have any domain controller or it does not have any other information that Active Directory sites and services can pull. Because we only have one domain controller and it is associated with Chennai. For Hyderabad, we haven't created any domain controller or any subnet or anything. So Active Directory doesn't know any information. So that's fine. We don't want any information to be provided here. So there are no servers here. So for example, if I say that my subnet for Hyderabad is 192.168.0.0/24. Okay, this is my Hyderabad subnet. So I will associate it with Hyderabad. Okay, so now Hyderabad has an subnet associated, which is 192.168.0.0/24. Now if someone, a user in if assume that we have some kind of server in Hyderabad as well, a domain controller like we have it in Chennai. So if someone changes his password here in Chennai, so the Chennai password change should replicate to Hyderabad. So that is why we configure something called as site link. Okay, a site link is a link between two distinguished sites so that the changes can replicate or any other information can be passed between the sites, so that whenever someone in Chennai, so for example a user in Chennai changes the password and if the site link is not configured, the password change is not replicated to Hyderabad, and this user comes to Hyderabad for some business purpose and try to log into Hyderabad from Hyderabad network, he will not be able to log in because the password change is not replicated. Okay, so this to avoid this kind of problems, we configure site links for the replication. So basically you create a new site link and select for so basically you have only two sites, so it was defaulted here. If you have multiple sites, it will list here in this particular row, so you need to select and add so that it will come here. Okay, so that is how you configure. So you say Chennai to HYD site link. Okay, and click OK. So now the site link is created, so I can delete the default site link if required, and then this is the site link that is created. So this link, for example, if you have multiple site links for the same region, so if there is another site, we have actually demonstrated that before. If there is a third site, if you want to make a replication, you can configure a site link to that as well, but it will take the cost, I mean, whatever is the least cost, uh, for example, for Chennai and Hyderabad, if there is also another link which is created, then which route it will take, it will depend on the cost of the site link. If the cost is low, it will go through that particular route. If the cost is high, it will try to avoid that route before going to replicate. So whichever is a low cost link, that will take that route. So now we have two subnets, two sites, and one a site link created. Site link is not really important. We need only the subnets and sites which are created. Now I will also go to the Active Directory, users and computers. So any questions on sites and site links? No, right?
No, no.
Okay, so these are the default users which are created. So I just don't want to make it this way. So I will create a new organization unit. Okay, for example, you have something called as corporate OU. OU is like a folder where you can uh, store your users and computers and all those stuffs. So in the corporate OU, for example, I want to make another folder structure which says human resource. Okay, so this is a human resource folder. So in this human resource folder, I am placing only people who are from HR department. Okay, so I need to have folder for users. So in this, I will store the HR user objects, and again in this I will store another folder which says computers. So all the HR users and computers will be here. Okay, now I need to create another OU. For example, I will create a new organization unit which is for sales. Okay, so in this particular OU, I want to ensure that I only have users from sales department and computers from sales department. So I say users. Okay, and then I do our OU for computers. Now, okay, so now we have one client computer, right? If you guys remember, we have a Windows 10 domain, a Windows 10 machine which is joined to domain. So that particular PC name is client. So if you want to see where this object is, you double click the object and you go to the object notation. So object is not shown here, so I need to enable advanced features so that you will see a lot of other features as well which are by default not shown to the end user. So if I go to this object client, okay, so this client is in which OU? It is in lab computers clients. So I go to lab computers OU. Here is the computers. Okay, so this is the client. Okay, so I want to drag and drop this client into the assume that this is an a computer of a HR guy. So I want to put that computer in human resource computer. So I'll go to lab OU and drag drop into computers. You can do it this way, or you can right click and move to computer. You can do it anyway. So in human resource, I have one computer which is client computer, and I will create some users as well here. Okay, new user, and I will say this guy is like uh, some kind of a name. So I will say is a Ajay, and his name is Ajay Kumar, and his logon name is Ajay Ajay K. First and Ajay K. First and last name at lab.com, and I will create a password for him. User cannot change the password. Oh, sorry. Generally, when you create user accounts, you will set user must change logon password. But this is lab. I am just unticking that just to ensure that if in case we need to log in as that user, we don't want to change the password again. So user, and then we have another user which is Ramesh Rao, something like that, for example. So I call him as Ramesh R as his username and give him a password. Okay, now we have two users add one computer in this OU. So I will create a one another computer which is a dummy computer. This one actually exists. Okay, this is actually our Windows 10 computer, but this one does not exist. This is some kind of pseudo computer which is I will give it as a client one. Okay, and then I will say okay. So now we have two users, two computers. I will replicate the same thing in this folder as well. New computer. I will say this is sales one. Okay, and another computer. New computer. Sales two. Okay. Now I'll create a two more users. New users, and then I will give some name like Mahesh G. Mahesh Gaud, something like that. Mahesh G. Next. So actually, I'm creating all this infrastructure just to ensure that we quickly go into the uh, discovery part and also to the device collection and the user collection part as soon as the installation is done. So the new user, I will say some we Vinod Reddy Vinod R. Next password. That's fine. Okay, next, finish. So now we have corporate OU under which we have human resource, we have sales, computers, and users. That's fine. Now I want to create another OU for groups. Okay, so there are basically two types of groups, which is a distribution group and a security group. A distribution group is primarily used for people to sending emails. Okay, whenever you want to send an emails to a particular team, for example sales team, they will have sales at your company.com, and in that particular distribution group there will be members, there will be users. Okay, so that whenever you send an email to one particular distribution group, it will distribute that email to all the users within the distribution group. And there is another group type which is called as security. This kind of security groups are used for permissioning. For example, if you want to permission a particular access to an application, or if you want to permission someone to access or log into some kind of a website. Okay, instead of giving permissions to individual users, what you will do is you will give permission to the security group, one security group, and whoever is member of that particular security group will be able to access or log into the website or the application, whatever it is. So there are primarily two group types, and there are group scopes. Group scopes are actually used for different scenarios. Okay, global, universal, and domain local. So basically the group scopes are like domain local is primarily used whenever you have a cross reference objects. For example, if you have a trust relation between two computers, I mean like two companies, and they want to access some kind of resources within your organization. So what they will do, they will create one group which is a domain local, and you will get that group and add it to it as a universal, so that the cross reference object formation is done. This is a very broad topic, so I don't want to cover this. For our purpose we don't really need this. So just understand that you have two group types, security and distribution, and the primary purpose. Security can hold permissions, distributions cannot hold permissions, they can just send emails or receive emails. So I will group type is security, and I will make some group as uh, for example I will make it as access list. Okay, I will make it as a group. There is one group. Where did I create it? Where is that access list created? Okay, it is created here. Oh, so let me just delete this. I created a domain level, so I want to put it in a container. So let me just create an OU first. New organization unit, and it's I say it as corporate groups. Okay, now I will create a new group within this group. Okay, which is access, user access. I will say user access, and I will create. Okay, now I will create another group. New group. This is computers access. So basically, groups can handle two things: a user or a computer. So for example, this particular is a computer access group. So I want I want to add computers to it. So I will say I've created some computers, right? So I need to select object reference as a computer here as well. So I click OK and say client. So client one is also a member of this group. Okay. And I want to add another group which is client one. So we are adding computers to the computer groups, and for the user access groups I will as add users. So I will select add, and Vinod, for example, I created one Vinod, and another user which is I don't remember the names. Ramesh Rao. Okay, fine. So now we have groups setup, we have users setup, we have computer setup. So let me just go through the installation. Where is it right now? So it is still running, so that's fine. So let me just so basically so these things are called as OUs, organization units, or you can also call it as a container, because we need this information. So if I go to get -ad computer, just a couple of things before we start. Computer now client. So I'm using a PowerShell command to get the list. So this is called a distinguished name. So just you need to have this in mind. So this is a distinguished name, and you can also add this in LDAP notation. So I will show you what is an LDAP notation is, how to, I mean, SCCM, whenever it queries the object, it will query through LDAP notation. So I will show you what is an LDAP notation as well. So this is a distinguished name, and we have corporate groups and users and computers which are set up. So what else we need? We have site services which are set up. So that's fine. I think we are pretty much good on the Active Directory part. So we have everything in place. So now we just need to wait for the installation to complete, post which we can run the discovery methods to discover all the objects that we have created within the Active Directory. So as soon as your SCCM installation is done, your SCCM will not be able to actually pull all those objects, whatever we have created.